town of the good, the bad, and the weird. You either live by the gun, or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, the Weird MicroViews. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And today, in continuation of celebrating our unintentional return of Brendan Fraser,
Yeah.
we decided to take a look at another one of his classic roles that we didn't have, that there's not really a whole lot to go off of.
No, there's really not. Despite the death grip that this had on us as children.
And still does at times.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, even more so. I mean, I think, honestly, this is probably the, actually, third or fourth role I know him more for, so.
Yeah, no, I think, like we said in our Mummy review, if you don't know him for The Mummy, you know him for George of the Jungle.
Yes. Specifically, 1997's George of the Jungle, because I did learn that it's based off a cartoon from the 60s.
Yeah, I forget that other people didn't accidentally grow up in a time machine, and so I did watch the cartoon before the movie.
Well,
but, like, I don't think that was how you were supposed to watch this. I think you were supposed to have seen just the movie, and that's fine.
Well, and I think I got myself mixed up on a lot of things, because when Boomerang was out, I always thought, like,
Yes.
cartoons were newer.
Yes.
So I assumed the George of the Jungle cartoon, and there was a more recent one after this movie.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I always
remember
assumed
that.
the old one was a newer thing than the movie for some stupid reason, even though it was, like, in the same style as, like, the Black or the Pink Panther and stuff.
Yeah, it was very much that time period. And, like, it was, if you did watch the cartoon before watching the movie, a lot of the, like, really dumb humor suddenly makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
But honestly, like, even as someone who did watch it first, who, like, didn't have to, like, retroactively go back, I don't think it's necessary. It's George of the Jungle. It's stupid fun.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, hell, it came out in 1997, which...
Prime peak for George of the Jungle style area.
I mean, I was 6 at the time, so I'm sure I saw commercials, but I don't remember it.
I know you watched commercials for it. Well, actually, I don't know. At least I remember seeing, like, preview commercials for it, because I feel like there was, like, the stupid theme song played as, like, the "Get ready to see George of the Jungle in theaters now." I feel like it played constantly.
Well, on top of that, to give some perspective, why I don't really remember this too much, probably until I was, like, in middle school, is because I was living in Alaska in 97.
Yeah, that might have, put a
And
small curve in that.
also, I wasn't a Disney kid. Like, I didn't really grow up on Disney, so...
Which is fair to an extent. So George of the Jungle, there was, like, a weird, and there kind of still is, depending on, like, which pool of Disney you dip your toe into. Because ever since Disney decided to have its, like, Disney Channel style TV, where that's kind of its own realm of Disney. That's its own, like, almost other dimension of Disney, right?
Yeah, it's where the young adult stars start making questionable decisions after.
Yes.
For a good chunk of them. There are quite a few who have made it successful, but...
And then there's plenty who disappear into the nether, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
Which, valid. But this was kind of like during the heyday of that. This was also Disney's attempt... There was, like, a time period when Disney wanted to like, pretend that they were, like, understood that they were cringy. But not like, oh, no, we're going to change something. More like, well, if someone's gonna make fun of us, we at least should be making money off it. Yeah,
it's their, it feels very much so like their first, like, foray into a live-action entertainment for kids. Even though we know from talking in the past of, like, the 70s and 80s, they tried doing something a little bit different, and it kind of just absolutely didn't work at all because there was full back nudity in one of them.
Yeah, whoops.
I mean, I enjoyed it, so...
Yeah, so George of the Jungle sat in kind of a weird point for Disney because it was them trying to make fun of Tarzan, which they already owned. Which also hilarious because I think Brendan Fraser tried out to be in Tarzan, and they told him no, and so they put him in this. Well, which honestly worked out better.
Because yeah. So for those unfamiliar, we've talked about it a little bit, but George of the Jungle is a comedic reimagining of Tarzan, which Disney did release the cartoon that everyone knows in '99.
This is the cartoon that y'all watched, not the original.
Yeah, but this is about a man who's raised by apes, who comes to America and falls in love with an American woman, and
then they all move back to the jungle.
Yes. It's a scaled down King Kong.
Yes. No, it very much is. And like, this isn't necessarily like brand new territory for Disney either. Mm-hmm. Disney had a huge run where they would take works of like light fiction, usually like dime style novels, where it's like, okay, this has got like maybe 20 pages and it is aimed at like first graders. And then they turn it into a whole movie. Like
Goosebumps. Or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Shaggy DA was one of them.
Is Shaggy DA the one that's got like the really bad...
Like the man...
the man who gets up, punches the dude, and runs off?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know of that.
If you ever want to read the book, I have the original copy. But yeah, and like, Disney was very quick to also at the same time come out with like, oh, we're taking this original work, coming out with the TV show or movie, and the book again. Because we bought it, of course we did.
Yeah.
So this is in the same vein of like, they already had the cartoon, they knew that worked, what if we did it again, and then right afterwards we, like 1-2 punch them with the cartoon again.
So it's like milking an IP for as much as they can.
But old school style. This was like back in the day. So like none of the milking IP stuff is new.
No.
This is just like that in-between phase of like going from book to movie to like from cartoon to movie to cartoon.
And really like, because that's the thing too. So I know this movie was released theatrically.
It was.
And also at the same time, like shortly after that it came to television, which I think is...
Yes.
I think this was like, just, it has like that television movie quality to it just a little bit, despite it being relatively high budget.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they used every different style possible to portray the animals. Yeah. They had real animals, they had puppets, they had some CGI work thrown in there, they had men in suits.
And it wasn't done in like a good way. Like,
no, it's terrible.
Like we can argue that Lake Placid had some merit in what they were doing.
There was attempts.
Yeah. But in at least like Placid knew it was gonna age. This is like they gave zero shits.
They gave no shits. The ones that are clearly guys in suits, it's not even a question about it. It's like Princess Bride giant rodents where you're like, that is a man in a gorilla costume. No doubts.
Okay. Well, real quick before we really get into it, I do want to bring up the people who are in it and the people who helped make this.
Of course.
So it's directed by Sam Weissman, with characters by Jay Ward, story by Dana Olson, and Audrey Wells doing the screenplay. Obviously, it stars Brendan Fraser.
Of course it does.
Leslie Mann and Thomas Hayden Church. Of these people, I only know Weissman from directing D2 Mighty Ducks, which I have not seen either.
Okay.
I've seen pieces of it, don't get me wrong. I've seen pieces of it, but
you know
again...
what? But it's in the same genre, though.
Yeah, I wasn't a Disney kid.
This is like the specific pool of Disney, too.
And for those who don't know Ward, because I didn't really know him before, like, looking him up, he is very well known for creating some of the most classic Americana cartoons. I'd say, for...
Very Americana.
The 60s and 70s, because he did the Rocky and Bullwinkle show.
A delight.
Dudley Do-Right, which... or the Dudley Do-Right show, which Brendan Fraser would star in the live-action version of that.
Yes.
And obviously, George of the Jungle. As well. Olsen, the writer, she's more in line with what I've seen.
Okay.
She did The Burbs. An episode of Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Yes.
99's Inspector Gadget.
A good Inspector Gadget.
But also she did a screenplay for a movie that I'm sure no one knows about. Called Memoirs of an Invisible Man that starred Chevy Chase.
Yeah, okay.
I am very curious about this now.
Yes, that sounds right up your alley.
Yeah. Esther Wells, most will probably know her more so from Under the Tuscan Sun from 2003.
Of course.
But before the only thing I know that she had only written one thing before this, and it was The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which I vaguely remember the name. I think it was also a Disney movie.
Yes. It was terrible, but Yeah, it was also one of those ones that, like, I think there was, like, kids' meal stuff to go with it, so, like, everyone saw it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, the only real McDonald's thing that I remember, because for me as a kid, I only remember, like, 3 fast food chains.
Mm-hmm.
Taco Bell, McDonald's, and Burger King.
Yes. We didn't eat out a ton when I was a kid. It was usually Mom and I being like, oh no, we're out too late. Tea. And so, like, getting a toy was something that, like, a thought-provoking activity.
Yeah.
Like, I would dream about certain McDonald's toys, and then, of course, like, a year later, it would be on my bucket list, and we were garage sale people, because, of course, we're the Midwest, and those McDonald's toys never die. Especially from the 90s.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, like, you would just get them again at the thrift store or the garage sale. So eventually I'd end up with the toy I wanted.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, the only thing that I think I can remember that was specifically Disney-related was the McDonald's Wilderness one. I can't remember its name. The Animal Kingdom. Oh,
yeah, Animal Kingdom hit McDonald's hard.
Yeah. That's the only one I remember specifically being McDonald's. I think that might also be because Burger King was Pokemon heavy, so... Like,
and I never got to eat at Burger King, so, like, I never knew what the toy was.
Well, this was 97 for us, so by that point, yeah, because I remember... I was actually talking to my mom about this over the weekend of just, like, memories of, like, childhood, and if there was anything like this, I probably was completely wiped out because Pokemon had taken over my life by this point.
Understandable.
But, like, that was at the point where the Burger King had moved out of some dude's trailer into the old police station.
Yeah, and we almost exclusively ate at McDonald's because, A, it was, like, on the way, and it was something that, as a household, we could agree on when I was little. We then moved to becoming a Sonic family, and we still are to this day.
Okay.
We stand a Route 44 Diet Vanilla Coke, easy on the ice.
I don't know what that is.
It is my drink order.
Okay.
Remember it well.
I've already forgot it.
It's okay. I'll get my own. But with one exception, and it was like occasionally Taco Bell would have a kick-ass toy because they would team up with Sony. And so they'd have like PlayStation toys.
Yeah, I think the only thing I remember from Taco Bell would have been the Godzilla toys.
Yeah, and like we had a PlayStation like 10 years after it was cool to have a PlayStation. So, like, my only connection to the PlayStation realm was Taco Bell toys. But it was worth it. George of the Jungle, though, despite having an absolute, like, wrench in us, because it was on TV quite frequently.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, like, love the movie, didn't have the movie, all of us can sing the theme song to this day.
Well, real quick before we get back to that.
Yes.
Man, I don't know a lot of her stuff other than, like, the niche comedies she did, like, that were really popular in high school. So, like, 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah.
The Cable Guy. Knocked Up. Drillbit Taylor. And she is in The Croods: A New Age, which I talked about yesterday a little bit to some people. And as when it comes to church, more known from Tombstone, Idiocracy, and Sandman in Spider-Man 3.
That is how I know him as Sandman.
Yes, same as well. But back to that dumbass song. Yeah,
with the exception of the song, George of the Jungle was kind of an oddball for this time in Disney World, or Disney, like, fandom for kids, because, like, there wasn't really anything to go with it. There wasn't toys, at least I don't remember there being any. If there was lightly toys.
Well, and if there, I think probably the 99 version would have had the toys by that point.
And honestly, like, most of the toys were taken over by Tarzan, which this was meant to be kind of a riff on. So they weren't really, like, they put money into making this movie, but they didn't put money into, like, the idea of George of the Jungle.
I looked it up real quick, and no, I don't think they had toys. If they, like you said, if they did, it was minimal. What I'm probably thinking about, I think there was a toucan toy with the Animal Kingdom stuff.
There definitely was.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's that weird era before, I think really before, I mean, we had marketing and we had toys for a little bit of everything, but it hadn't gotten to the point, and I think Pokemon really changed that specifically with the cards, the toys, and then everything feels like it came after. I'm sure there was more before that, but like...
Well, and then Pokemon immediately branched out and did school supplies and binders. Like, you could get Pokemon everything, even in the 90s.
Yeah, but there wasn't like Disney. There was some Disney lunchboxes, but it wasn't like what it is today.
No, and today there is a Disney lunchbox for everything.
Oh god.
You have to go pretty far into the Disney lukewarm pool of mediocrity before you run into like not even having a poster.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately where Joy of the Jungle is. There's like nothing really to buy for it. Which for Disney back in the day, not terribly uncommon because they were more focused on the mouse and they were more focused on like their big selling points, like Lion King's, Tarzan.
Yeah.
The big pictures. Nowadays though, I mean, if George of the Jungle came out or if they, somehow managed to do a third one, there would be merchandise.
Yeah, because I'm looking up real quick, like, what era this was. Because, this was after Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might have been in a little bit of, like, a lull between their productions.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, this was no golden age, for sure. But especially for kids, Disney was still hook, line, and sinker the creator for movies at this point.
Sorry, I forgot about this. No, this is in an era where they were doing a bunch of shit, because this is where they started releasing stuff like a Goofy movie in 95, Pocahontas 95, Toy Story 95, James and the Giant Peach, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Probably why George of the Jungle got anything it did, because it actually, I think it was like number 2 in the box office at the time.
It did, yeah.
Next to Men in Black. But Hercules came out the month before, and Mulan came out the year after that.
Hercules had a lot of toys, and so did Hunchback of Notre Dame, which now that I think back on it makes no sense, but it did. It had stuff.
I vaguely remember the toys for Hunchback.
Yeah, looking back on it, and now as an adult who's read the original works, questionable choice, Disney, but I get it.
Yeah. I don't know. It really is weird looking back at it, because I don't think I ever saw this movie in one sitting as a kid. I think it was
always like on when other people were over. But no one ever really watched this.
Yeah.
Like, if it was on TV, maybe I'd leave it on. But yeah, I didn't actively watch George of the Jungle as a kid. And yet I know this movie back to front. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, I'm sure that that's it too, that I saw it in enough parts that I pieced it all together.
Yeah, definitely.
But, and I think you're hitting it right on the nail. Like, it is a kind of weird movie, and why I don't think anyone nowadays would really remember it unless you grew up with it.
No.
But I think part of it was just like the full weirdness of it with its puppetry and really, really bad CGI, even for its time. Bad.
There was no effort put into the CGI.
But I think it sticks because it's the right amount of like cheesy and fun, where like the acting's actually pretty good for it. The story's not terrible.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is even for when it came out, the way the story is written and the way the dialogue is, it is, from day one, it was nostalgic 90s style.
Yeah.
Like, they go to San Francisco for no fucking reason. And it's just George in the Jungle in San Francisco, like, enjoying himself.
Yeah.
While his friends are, like, being carted off.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also, like, the little bit of, like, it's being so self-aware that it's bad, because...
It is, yeah.
I've used this gif in multiple reactions to people of, like, this is the part where we tilt our heads back and laugh, which, honestly, the African tour guides are probably the
hilarious.
best part of the movie, to be honest.
They have some of the best lines.
But it just, I don't know, it's...
Like, this movie knew from the writing, from the very beginning, even, like, when they're like, what if we took this old cartoon, which was already self-aware of being, like, a Tarzan ripoff.
Yeah.
Because, granted, Disney was hoping that this Tarzan, like, this George of the Jungle people would put together with their Tarzan as, like, oh, we're ripping off our own Tarzan. But the original cartoon wasn't ripping off Disney's Tarzan. It was ripping off the original Tarzan. Yeah. The man of the jungle. And so... It already was coming from a place of spoofiness.
Yeah, and I think that's what's helped it, especially, like, rewatching it, honestly, almost 20 years later now?
Yeah, like, visually, not the greatest, but honestly, like, still kind of fun to rewatch. Surprisingly enjoyable.
Yeah, and, I don't know, I don't think, and that's the thing about it, too, is it doesn't really hold that point of nostalgia, which...
No.
I kind of want to go back and rewatch, because I've been talking with my buddy Krim from Chicken on a Stick about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've brought it up a couple times. We've been harassing him a little bit about because we found out he doesn't like Hocus Pocus. He thinks it's a lot of nostalgia playing into it.
Which
so
it is. It is.
And I kind of want to go back and rewatch it now because of those comments. But George of the Jungle just doesn't have that same like feeling because that's the thing. It's not a good movie to begin with.
No, it is the equivalent of being nostalgic for the ball pit in McDonald's. It was gross from day one, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like, it was always bad. No one actually, like, didn't end up with pink eye from it. But, like, we all had a good time.
Yeah, and it's weird because even then, like, it does stick out because what I was doing, I just did a little looking about, like, what else was coming out around that time.
Sure.
And family movie-wise, like, 97 was a weird movie for, like, a weird year for good movies because...
Yeah, there was something all the time.
Yeah, family-wise, we had Men in Black.
Yeah.
Good Burger. Hercules. Batman and Robin. Air Bud. And Flubber and the Borrowers.
Which, depending on what kind of kid you had, that was a movie for every different kind of kid.
Yeah. No,
like, there was nobody left out that year.
No, and I mean, even outside of that, there was just a good set of classics that are still holding up to me. Like, when I think about it, Beverly Hills Ninja, Jackie Brown, Austin Powers, The Fifth Element, Lost World, Jurassic Park, Con Air and Face Off, which released a month apart, which we had 2 Nicolas Cage movies in theater at one time.
A little odd, but yeah.
Yeah. Event Horizon, Mimic, Cube, Titanic, Good Will Hunting. Like,
oh, Good Will Hunting.
97 was a good year for movies, and then we have Tarzan.
Yeah. And then we have George of the Jungle.
Oh, yeah, sorry, George of the Jungle, not...
I mean, Tarzan was also stellar.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then on top of that, like, from a... Because you do kind of get the sense that, yeah, this was released in theaters, but, like, if you had told me, like, hey, this never... You remember that wrong. This was only ever released on TV. I would be like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it was originally thought of as a TV, and then they're like, hey, we've already spent enough money, let's put it in theaters.
Yeah, let's see if we can recoup that a little bit instead of TV.
Which they did.
Yeah.
But, like, even TV-wise, there was... I mean, this wasn't, like, the standout star of TV, even. Like, there was plenty on.
Because that's the thing. I mean, it did well in theaters, too, is the issue.
It did. Which is hilarious, because, like, it did well in theaters. Everyone that I know who, like, especially Brendan Fraser fans, for the most part, like this movie. Maybe it's not, like, their favorite. Some people it is. But, like, nobody's like, oh my god, I hate George of the Jungle. Except for the critics, who were not a fan.
Yeah, and I don't know, it just teeters on that weird era. Because, like I said, everyone's acting is pretty good. The plot's not bad.
Yeah.
I think it has a little bit of Jungle to Jungle vibes for me.
I think Jungle to Jungle is in the same vein as, like, oh, if that had come out solely for TV, I would have totally believed it.
Yeah, it's that weird era where I don't think ever at least entertainment wise, and I say this, but I haven't really done any digging into it. But like made for TV movies, there were plenty of them. I'm very well aware.
There was so many.
My mom had us watch one that she remembers fondly with her mom, and it kind of fell in that case where like my mom remembers both of them fondly. We watched the first one. The first one's actually not bad. And then it's the second one, and we watched it back to back, and the second one is just so god-awful, kind of like this movie series, too.
Yeah, because I do remember when the second one came out, my friend group was excited for it, and mostly because it was Brendan Fraser. And by the time the second one had decided to roll out, they had stopped watching it for the silly humor and had started watching it for shirtless Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, because that's right. Brendan Fraser was very, very toned for it.
Yes, incredibly toned for this movie.
But yeah, I do want to talk about the sequel a little bit, just because I don't want it doesn't deserve its own episode, but it deserves to be brought up.
It really doesn't,
because it took the whole self-aware thing and just made it even worse. Because that's the thing. The first George of the Jungle had, I think this is the best way to compare them, is the first one that's all right.
Yep.
And the sequel that is absolute dog shit garbage.
It is. And then there's the cartoon, which is one of the worst cartoons that Disney has ever produced. Not in like a, oh, wow, it had nothing to offer. The animation style was too close to Fairly Odd Parents. And like, not in a good, charming way. It was just kind of like, oh, is this a fake cartoon? You know how like, and like this is gonna sound weird now, but like back in the day there were cartoons inside of cartoons, and like those could theoretically have been their own thing. This felt like a fake cartoon inside of another cartoon.
Oh, kind of like how Tarantino has his world set up where there's Tarantino's world and then there's movies with inside his universe.
Yeah, like how there's Crimson Chin, which is an entire different cartoon inside of Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
This feels like that.
Yeah, and I think part of it was, specifically in the humor, is the first one had that balance of good, heartfelt moments to it, and then it had the self-aware moments that weren't, like, fourth wall breaking besides the African tour guides.
Which they were the only ones, really.
Yeah. And even then, like, their parts were great because it was always making fun of the villain.
Yes.
And the sequel, just, even the way it addresses it of, like, we couldn't get Brendan Fraser back because he asked too much money. And it's like, are you serious about that? Like, is that really, like, your, like, snide little remark of, like, why you couldn't get Brendan Fraser back for a sequel that didn't need to be made? Because the wife didn't come, or what's her name? Wells didn't come back. The only people that came back were the bad guys, or the mom of Barbara? The mom.
Yeah, the mom.
The mom and the butler, and I think the actor who played the ape.
Which, you know, good for him, but, like, honestly, like, meh?
Yeah.
And, yeah, and the other thing that I think...
Oh, and might I add, the CGI for the sequel is somehow even worse than the first one.
Oh, yeah, no, they were like, oh, we did well with that budget, what if we cut it in half again?
Oh, yeah, and they just added so much extra bullshit to it. At least the first Tarzan feels streamlined.
Yes. And the other thing that I think helps with the George of the Jungle is Brendan Fraser has a real gift for, like, slapstick, like, self-inflict harm style humor.
Yeah, if you watch him in, like, the remake of Bedazzled? No, not Bedazzled.
That's what you do to clothes.
No, it is Bedazzled.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Now you bring it up, yeah.
Yeah, it is Bedazzled. This is also, like, so it, for me with Brendan Fraser, it's The Mummy, it's Bedazzled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because these were the movies I grew up with. Also, Elizabeth Hurley. Very nice red dress.
Yeah, it's very tight. There's a lot of boobage.
There's a lot of boobage. And then it's Scrubs.
Fair.
I mean, those are like my top 3 Brendan Fraser that I gotta say. Because honestly, if you want to see his acting chops, watch all the roles he does for Bedazzled.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And, like, especially for kids' films, he has such a gift with, like, slapstick style humor that the first one managed to, while it's not my style of humor, they did a really good job of, like, manipulating into the storyline. It's not just there. It's, like, part of the character. Yeah,
and it's not over the top like the sequel tries to do and tries to make it
there's too much.
Yeah.
There's only really, like, a handful of good slapstick humor in the first one, and they stand out really hard.
Yeah, and also on top of that, they made George so much dumber in the second one, because at least the first one,
he's dumb, but he's not that dumb.
Yeah, and the only, like, real trope that they have going for him, like the comedic trope that's repeated, is he doesn't pay attention to where he's going through and runs into a tree. Yeah,
that's kind of his whole thing. And, like, yeah, he's not as smart as the talking ape and the random toucan that can understand multiple languages.
Dookie.
Yeah, bless that thing.
Yeah.
But, like, it's also implied that both of those characters are above smart. Like, incredibly smart. I mean, one of them built a treehouse and raised a child. So, like, I don't think that one qualifies.
No.
And the other one's a dog, shaped like an elephant.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like the elephant.
I don't either, but you know what? It's real easy to forget the elephant.
Yeah. And I have one more thing to say about the dog shit sequel. So, it's the end. And I think this is what summarizes why, like, the first one did its own thing and did it well enough.
Yes.
It's the sequel. The the end sequence where they fucking redo Tarzan.
Yes.
And it's just so, like, it feels like they're just like, well, here's the thing. So I actually, when I was on a scope trip with one of my designers, I was talking to them and I'm like, oh yeah, kids movies, we were talking about like how they've gone down a claw. I'm like, but it's for kids. And he's like, I mean, you can't really just say that and just shovel shit out and kids will accept it. This is exactly his argument that I completely agree with. Yes. Is that, oh my God, the sequel to Tarzan is such dog shit of like where they just shoveled it out there hoping that that this first one did well enough that here the sequel will be better.
That's true. And that's kind of the sweet spot and something that I think finally Disney has really grasped onto. Because Disney's always made movies, in theory, their golden star child movies are like for everyone. They're supposed to be entertaining for parents and for kids. But then their other stuff, was just shoveled out and it was humorous. We watched it. A lot of us loved it. But let's be real, it was garbage.
Yeah.
And they've gotten better. But the sequels is where they still hurt. And yeah, George of the Jungle 2 is a good example of like, man, we just really didn't try.
What about Tarzan 2? Because I know there's a sequel to that.
Surprisingly not the worst.
Okay.
It's not Tarzan 1, but like kind of hard to live up to that. But it does focus like it's just him as a kid, the whole movie. It's not really like a full arc. And it's not picking up the story where we left off. So it's okay. It's not the worst of their attempted sequels.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, we could do a whole series on Disney sequels because there's so many.
And like, there's some very, very strong opinions on which ones are actually good.
Yeah.
And then you get like Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, which is garbage.
Because it was like, I think it was before our last recording, you informed me that there's a Cinderella 3. Or no, I asked you about it and you're like, oh yeah, that's actually one of the good ones.
Yeah, Cinderella 3, Stitch in Time or whatever, is actually really good. Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, where he tries to get a girlfriend, garbage. Don't watch it. Like, truly garbage, and this is coming from someone who's watched all of the Swan Brides.
The Hunchback tries to get a girlfriend in the second one?
Yeah, he doesn't try, he gets a girlfriend in the second one. Oh, and Esmeralda and the Knight have a kid. What? Don't worry, the book doesn't exist in Disneyland, because, not everyone's dead.
Oh, yeah, the end of the book where the, Romani girl, I don't remember any of their names. The Romani girl dies and the Hunchback commits necrophilia. Yes. You say that's not in the book?
Yeah,
Or not in the movie?
That's not in the movie. She's not dead. But on top of that, they, like, in the second one, they were like, yeah, what if it was wholesome and, like, now it's more family-focused? That movie was never family-focused. What was wrong with them?
I think you actually do have a good point there, is that, of course, Disney's going to be family-focused. But I think their first movies always have that like little tinge of like seriousness or like some adultness to it. Because I don't even remember. I don't think I've seen the second Aladdin, but I guarantee you I have seen the third Aladdin.
Yes, you have.
And the third Aladdin is actually pretty good. But I think they kind of lose that quite a bit of like where they have the first couple or like the first one's good, second one's dog shit, then they make maybe a good one again, and then everything after that is just awful.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's always some bigger picture usually with like whatever's good. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, they're trying too hard to like focus in on the kids, focus in on the family unit. Where a lot of these movies, that's not the message. That's not what the movie's about. And that's the weird thing about George of the Jungle. The first one is. The first one's about like finding your family, about finding your home, about being comfortable with who you are and standing up for yourself. All very basic Disney like movie tropes, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the second one supposed to be about? The same thing?
I don't even remember the plot of the second one's like he gets ransomed to go no, the family goes to like blackmail him in the jungle and take all the animals or something.
Yeah, it's something real dumb.
It's really stupid because the ape has gone to the States and like
oh no, in the end of the first one he like joins a like he's like in LA or something.
Yeah, he's like some stage performer. And
which like good for him.
Falls into crippling debt in the second one.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they just absolutely lose the plot of what made the first one watchable.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, Chris, it's that time of the MicroView.
Yes.
Rent, buy, or decline that we ever watched it despite having an audio recording of us watching it.
This is a rent.
Oh, hell yeah. Even vaguely a rent. Like, I feel this is something I would put on one time for a kid and just be like, all right, if they like it, cool. If not,
yeah, like if it's already on the Disney Channel, I'll watch it again.
I'll move on to the next thing that clicks with them so I can secretly annoy their parents from the shadows.
Yes. I think, okay, I I would consider owning this, partially because I am a big fan of Brendan Fraser, and like this is a good movie. I do enjoy watching it. I would consider buying this if the DVD had literally anything else on it.
Oh, yeah, no. And here's the thing, because, again, reiterate, I'm a fan of physical medium.
Mm-hmm.
I own this and the sequel because it came as a combo pack.
Yeah, the second one is not what I would consider bonus material.
No. And I feel like that is it. Because I think, there's only like the trailer is the bonus material. There's not even deleted scenes. Because the sequel did the stupid fake deleted scenes at the end.
Which was kind of fun, but like, okay, I would buy this if it came with like several episodes of the original cartoon.
Oh, okay. So, like, if it was, like, a combo pack of the movie and the TV show.
And not the new TV show, which is garbage. The original TV show.
Yeah, kind of like how the original release of the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans had, like, the first episode of the original classic Spider-Man.
Yeah, that would be, for me, then I would move it from rent to buy.
Okay.
But as it stands right now, as far as I can tell, the only real, like, copies you can get, the only bonus material is, like, some previews and the second movie. Which isn't even listed as, like, a bonus feature. It's listed as combo pack. Yeah, which, no thanks. I'm good.
Yeah.
So, for right now, just rent. What about you?
I'm exactly the same. Or if you have is it on Disney Plus?
I have no idea. I don't get Disney Plus in that part of the house.
I have Disney Plus because of Sugi, so...
Yeah, I don't sit close enough to the Wi-Fi box to get Disney Plus.
George of the Jungle 1 and 2 are on Disney Plus.
That's the best way to watch it, let's be real.
I think we have to add a segment to it. Rent, buy, stream, or decline ever watching it.
On a stream on a platform you already pay for.
That is a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If I bothered to move my butt from the very farthest part of the house to closer to the Wi-Fi so that I could watch Disney Plus, yes, I would stream this whenever I felt like it. Without any questions. Like, I'd just be like scrolling through, be like, oh, George of the Jungle, yeah.
This DVD will probably rot on my shelf.
Probably. But again, if they suddenly, like, put stuff on the DVD, it would go from streaming to buy.
Same. I completely agree with that. I think that's a good point, is like, it has to have something more to it than just being George of the Jungle.
Yeah, unfortunately. Despite Brendan Fraser's beautiful pecs.
Yes, they are very glorious.
So oiled.
But this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird MicroViews.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Dookie dookie. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.